The Endless Golf Podcast, brought to you by Toyota.
And welcome to another edition of the Endless Golf Podcast. Today I have a very special guest and a longtime friend, a guy with a great story and really has had a great life, Al Hondo Handy. He's written a book, and if you don't know he's written a book by now, you must not know this guy because he's done a great job promoting his book, that's for sure. Defying Expectations. It really couldn't, there's not a better title you could fit for his life, and he really has defied the expectations. But the other thing about this, Hondo, family, sports, and recreation. That's really what your life's all about. First of all, welcome to the show, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you, Bobby. It's a dream come true. It's one of the things I had on my bucket list when I retired, and I finally got it done after a few years.
I know you worked on this book for a long, long time and put a lot of effort and thought into it, Hondo. Let's close our eyes a minute and go back to the early mid-'50s. You were born in what, 52, I would think?
53.
53, right?
Right.
And back in 1953, growing up in Berlin, you wake up and here you are in this town, and really what you thought about and was all about in your early years was your family.
Yes, my family, they're basically the backbone of my life. You know, they pointed me in the correct direction. My mother grew up in, unfortunately, in the Jim Crow law times, and no going in the front doors of restaurants, no using the public water fountains or public restrooms, and life was unfair for her, but she never wavered. She always said, "Don't give up on my dream to be a better person."
And you certainly done that. I can tell you this, you have the little quote on the front, and it says, "If you think you can, you can." And you really lived your life by that mantra.
Yes. If you think you can was something that I picked up from my coach, Ward Lambert. And I've had that quote with me, and I even told the kids at Stephen Decatur High School, when they go out in their life, if you think you can, you can. So that was one of the things I wanted to leave with them. But that's how I led my life: family, sports, and recreation.
Well, just reading the book a little bit in your early years, you made a point to mention that it felt like you had two mothers growing up, and I was kind of fortunate with that too. I was very close to my godmother, and having two people in your life, a mom and a godmother. In your case, I think it was your aunt,
yes.
Your mom was very important to you.
Very, very important. We lived right next to each other. I was the only child from my mother, and my aunt Helen, who I called Haha, because I could not pronounce her name correctly. She had two kids, and they became my big brother and big sister, Ronald Mitchell and Diana Mitchell. And Ronald played basketball, but my first inklings of basketball came from my uncles, Monroe and Ralph. I used to watch them play every Saturday, and finally I was able to go to Wichita High School, all-black high school back then, to see Ronald play, and I started to get intrigued by the game, and things went from there.
You mentioned in the book when you picked up that basketball for the first time, it really changed your life. You just had a passion for playing sports.
Yes, before that, I ran a lot behind my cousins, Larry and John. They were 6 years older than me, so I kind of had to run twice as fast to keep up with them. But once I got my hands on that basketball, it kind of changed my life. I wanted to play it so bad. I was able to think about it all the time. Go when I got home, I wanted to get my chores done so I could go play basketball, and it just changed my life.
Here's a guy who's 5'5". You would never think he's a great basketball player, but I can attest and I can tell you, I've watched him play. I played against him. I played with him. He is a fierce competitor. And when you're 5'5", because I know something about being short, Hondo, we both share that. We share a lot of things in common as well. We'll get onto that a little bit later. But when you're shorter and when you're challenged and you got the bigger kids, you got to really have some heart. And you've certainly had that your whole way. And you've always loved just to compete.
Well, that also came from when we grew up. We didn't have the best living conditions, and we only had no indoor plumbing, just a pump in the front yard. Where when we pumped water, mother would have to boil the water before she could wash your clothes. Otherwise, it would stain your clothes. And so I knew a lot of people attribute success to where you came from or what you had, and then it was the fact that, of course, that I was so short, and I fell in love with sports. So people would say You can play basketball around here, Hondo, but you're never going to make a high school team, and of course, you're never going to play in college. And I wanted to, prove them wrong and basically define their expectations.
Well, you certainly did, and then you integrated to Stephen Decatur High School, and then that was an amazing story. Played with a lot of good players. You had some of the guys that you went to high school with at Worcester. Some of the other guys, the black guys that you were with. You ended up going to Stephen Decatur. You play on the basketball team, and really it was the basketball team really that brought that school together, especially in that 1970 year.
Yes, when we were at Fly Street Elementary School, what happened was that was an all-black elementary school, and there was a all-black high school, which Worcester High, which I mentioned. And in the 6th grade, we received information that said, hey, in the next few years, all these schools are going to be integrated in Worcester County. So basically it said, here's your opportunity to go to Stephen Decatur High School early if you'd like. And myself, and of course, Oliver Purnell, who you know, and used to coach at Clemson, and Ron Dixon, and we decided to go to Stephen Decatur, and we got there. Back then, high schools were 7th grade and 12th grade. Can you imagine that today? And so we found out they had all these sports, because we only had recess in elementary school. We found out they had all these different sports teams, but we also found out that we couldn't play because we were in the 7th and 8th grade. You couldn't play until the 9th grade. So Coach Lambert, saw that we were interested in sports and took us under his wing and said, look, you guys can become managers for the next few years and learn about the game, and that's what we did. And by the time we were able to go out for the JV team, we had a pretty successful year. But by the time we reached the 11th grade, our team was winning a lot of games, and basically our team created a buzz in our community. And believe it or not, Bobby, blacks and whites for the first time ever started to come to games together, started sitting together, started talking to each other, and we ended up winning that state championship. Our team really brought our town of Ocean City and Maryland together.
Yes, this is 1970 on the eastern shore of Maryland. People of color was not an easy place to be, for sure. No. I grew up in a different situation. I grew up in Baltimore County, right next to Baltimore City. When I was younger, and I'm 8 years younger than you.
Right.
A completely different experience, obviously, with our race and everything. But
right.
Also being around people that are different. Just people that are different from you. I kind of experienced that my whole life, and for you, and even the white kids in high school, it was different for everybody back then, and I'm sure it took a while, especially for you guys, to adjust.
Well, the thing with it was, I think we thought when we were going to school we might see each other a lot more. We were going to school together, be the first 6 African Americans in the school, although the year before my cousin Larry Waple was the very first guy to go to Stephen Decatur, African American to go to Stephen Decatur, and he kind of opened the door, so we went right behind him, and thought we'd see each other like as we were in elementary school. We get there, I almost never see my kids, my friends, till the end of the day when the bell rings. But at the end of the day, that was our opportunity to become managers, see each other again, get down to the gym. Coach Lambert give us a few tips, and get ready to do our job as managers. And I think our first friends in the school were actually the basketball players. The juniors, the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We walking down the hall with those guys, and don't worry about everybody else. You with us, So that was kind of the start of us integrated now, Stephen Decatur High School.
We'll take a quick break. Come back here on the Endless Golf Podcast presented by Toyota. We'll talk about Hondo's 1970 and Stephen Decatur's 1970 state championship team, as well as his experience at Salisbury State College back then, and then, of course, his career in the recreation department after this. So stay with us.
And now a word from our sponsor.
I love a good adventure, and my friends and family do too. So we all drive Toyotas. Tacomas for my rugged buds and Corollas for my city crew. And I drive a RAV4 that I take camping, shopping, and basically everywhere else. We all picked our Toyotas because they're reliable and efficient and have amazing resale value, saving us money now and down the road, so we can make every day an adventure. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals and inventory. Toyota, let's go places.
And welcome back to the Endless Golf Podcast presented by Toyota. Staying with me is Al Hondo Handy. And Hondo, we've talked about your experience early in your life and got into high school. In 1970, you win a state championship. That's something that stays with you and it'll stay with even the students there forever.
Yes, it was a historical time, first time in the school's history. And Bobby, as of this year, it's been 53 years, and no other team has won that state championship.
I know they honored you in 2020, Stephen Decatur
Yes.
did, and I saw that when you guys got together, it had been 50 years, obviously, and that really is the first time you'd all been together in 50 years.
Yeah, it's the first time we've been really together in a long, long while, and we were so excited. And then we got that completely big surprise where they put this gigantic plaque up on the wall, and it'll be there forever, the score of our state championship game over Frederick High, 64-63.
So then you decide you want to go to college, and you're here. You are 5'5", and there's nobody giving you a chance to play college basketball for sure. But you also played baseball, and you were such a good athlete. You were so fast and so quick, and like we talked about that heart. You decided to go, and it just so happens your basketball coach at Decatur becomes the basketball coach at Salisbury State College, and that is Ward Lambert, who I knew over my years at Salisbury. So you had a chance to play for Ward Lambert and Dean DeShawn. Dean DeShawn, obviously, because I played baseball there,
Right.
coached me, and we had the honor really to play for Dean DeShawn. But Ward Lambert was just a wonderful man as well.
Oh yes, he's been a mentor to me, not only in high school but in college, and even today. I never make a major decision in my life without first contacting him.
Yep, he's a great man for sure. And then Dean DeShawn, you had a great baseball career. You started out there. You wanted to play. I saw your freshman year. You noted you wanted to play as a freshman. You were a little greedy wanting to play as a freshman.
Well,
too.
I think all the freshmen nowadays, they feel the same way,
Right.
but they don't understand. You got to wait for your opportunity. But it's waiting, and one day, the lineup was called, and I wasn't paying attention because I hadn't been in there the first 6 games, I think. And I had to have another freshman to tell me that I was in the starting line. I'm like, what? I tried to find my glove, and I found my glove, and I stumbled out of the dugout, right on the ground.
Well, Hondo, not only did you play,
it was basis.
not only did you play for Ward Lambert, and you played for Dean DeShawn, basketball and baseball, but you also were assistant coaches there as well.
Yeah, when I finished school, me and Tom Stitcher became assistant baseball coach at Salisbury State College then for Coach Dean DeShawn. It was a great experience. And, when it came to basketball, I ended up breaking my kneecap. And Coach gave me an opportunity to become a student assistant basketball coach. And way back then, Bobby, there were also freshman teams, not only the regular basketball varsity team, but it was a freshman team. And I got a chance to coach the freshman team a number of games by myself. Then I got a chance to coach against the touring Czechoslovakian team.
Wow.
So what a great experience.
And the other coach that you got to play for in baseball, and a lot of people from Salisbury may not know this, but was Mike McGlinchey. Coach McGlinchey coached baseball. And I tell you what, I have a lot of friends that wrestled for Coach McGlinchey. They played football for Coach McGlinchey. He was really one of a kind. You talk about a guy and a coach that would motivate you and that would push you. Coach McGlinchey would do that.
He was the reason that he pushed me to play in a summer baseball league in Wilmington, Delaware. I played that. He said, I think, Hondo, this is your game. I went and signed. I said, but I got to work. He said, you got to make a choice. Play baseball, you want to work. So I decided to go play baseball summer. And unfortunately, Bobby, he was a great competitor on the courts when you played against him.
Yes.
But he was a great coach. But the first day of my senior year, I come back the very first day, and I break my kneecap, and my whole career is over as far as sports. So
a lot of reasons in your lifetime, a lot of times you could have chose to quit and you didn't. You stayed positive. You stayed on the path. So you graduate from Salisbury. You have a great experience there. It's interesting for a lot of kids out there, if you're watching this, Hondo worked at UPS for his last few semesters in the morning from like 5 or 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., then went to school. So
right.
when the kids out there think they have it rough now, you worked in the morning at UPS, and then you would go to school, you got your degree, and then here you are, you're graduating. I read that you were looking to start at UPS, and they went on strike, so you had to do something different.
Yes, I think I graduated on a Friday evening, and then the Monday morning we run down to UPS, and guy grabs my arm and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to work." He says, "You work here?" I said, "Yes." And I never thought about it, but he was a new guy. I didn't know this guy. He said, "Oh, okay. Well, look, we're on strike. Grab one of those signs." I said, "I just graduated from college. I'm on strike. What am I on strike for?" And and it's at the end of the, he said, "Don't worry about it. You're gonna get a paycheck at the end of the week." I'm like, "Firing me? I'm in shape." I walk up and down and go over and get my little paycheck on North Salisbury Boulevard from the Teamsters Union. As I'm walking away, I look at that check. I'm open my envelope and it's $25. I almost fainted.
Well, then you decided to make a move. You end up moving up to Baltimore. You were there for a brief time, worked at Johns Hopkins, I think as a security guard for a little while.
Right.
And in the book you mentioned that you started hanging around, you recognize this, you started hanging around with the wrong people. And there's a guy out there, they say his famous quote is, "Look around at your friends and that's your future." And I had another friend that used to tell me, if you hang around dogs, you get fleas.
That's
So
right.
the people that you surround yourself with are so important. And for you to recognize that at a young age was very important. And you decided to come back home. And when you come back home to Berlin, really your life changed forever there.
Yeah, what really happened was I also was substitute teaching up there. And one day I came in and there was a sign there that said Harford County Parks and Recreation was looking for a youth basketball league director at the elementary school that I was, Edgewood Elementary School. And I said, "Man, this might get me a job, get my foot in the door."
Right.
And I leaped on that and then started enjoying it. During the summer came, had a summer camp, and then things weren't going well for me, and actually called my brother that I told you about earlier, Ronald Mitchell, who lived in Philadelphia, and that's who I stayed with during the summer when I played baseball in Wilmington, and he always helped me out, and he says, "What do you need?" I said, "I need this. I needed some money on this, that," and he listened like he was taking notes or something.
Right.
And then he says, "Here's what I want you to do, Hondo." I'm like, "Okay." He said, "I want you to go back to your apartment, pack what you can get, and go back home and start your life over." And I thought for a second, and I said, as tears were dropping, I said, "You know what? He's right." And I came back, and now I know that you can start your life over.
Well, with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about Hondo's life and his career at the Recreation Department when he comes back home, how he got involved with the Ocean City Recreation and Parks Department, and how he made a difference in this community, because he certainly did. So stay with us.
And now a word from our sponsor.
I love a good adventure, and my friends and family do too. So we all drive Toyotas. Tacomas for my rugged buds, and Corollas for my city crew. And I drive a RAV4 that I take camping, shopping, and basically everywhere else. We all picked our Toyotas because they're reliable and efficient and have amazing resale value, saving us money now and down the road, so we can make every day an adventure. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals and inventory. Toyota, let's go places.
And welcome back to the Endless Golf Podcast presented by Toyota. Staying with me is Al Hondo Handy, and we're talking about Hondo's life, but also about his book, Defying Expectations, Family, Sports, and Recreation. We've talked about family, we've talked about sports. Now we're going to talk about the recreation part of this. You're back home. You mentioned that you had gotten your first job in Harford County in the recreation field, but you come back home, and how did you land the job at Ocean City Recreation and Parks?
Well, Bobby, when I came home, I had that itch for recreation. My major was physical education at Salisbury State College then, and I came back home, went down to my father's house in Berlin, and I started basically a free recreation program right on the grounds of the elementary school that I went to for the local kids, so they could have something to do during the summer, and it went really good. And then the next summer, my good friend Greg Purnell and I decided to start the first youth basketball league in the community. And we started the youth basketball league, had all the businesses in Berlin involved. The town of Berlin decided to pay for our insurance. We got shirts, and believe it or not, our guest speaker each at the end of each summer was none other than Ward Lambert.
Amazing. Comes in full circle.
It comes in full circle. And then Greg was already working for the town of Ocean City's rec department, and he let me know there was an opening coming up, and I'm like, maybe I should, apply. He said, you got to, Hondo, you got to. And I started and got a position. Eventually, I was moved into a new position that hadn't been there before. It's called a public ground specialist. I was working with the Parks Division. That went really well. In other words, we were taking care of all the ball fields in Ocean City. We were doing such a great job, the town or the council or somebody said, why don't you guys take care of the rest of the town? Then you got the interest park, all the median strips, City Hall, all the public owned facilities. And so they basically created a new position, and I became the public ground specialist. And a few years down the road, I was able to join the recreation side, which was a great and a scary opportunity for me.
And that was kind of when we met, and I was here in the early 80s, and then called Ocean City my home in the early 80s, and we met, and we had that in common because when we met, we both knew that we went to Salisbury. We both knew we had talked about, we played baseball for Coach Deshawn, and we knew all the coaches, Coach McGlinchey,
right.
Ward Lambert, Tom Stitcher was our manager there.
Right.
So we had this connection, and during that time, I just was amazed at how many people knew you and how many people just loved you.
Well, I've been there for a long while, and I hear that all the time. Hondo, everybody's got some great stories about you,
There's no question.
And they do, and everybody they still recognize it. Matter of fact, even last night, 2 girls called and they wanted me to come to see their lacrosse game. This is their senior game. If they lose, they're done. But I had to go right to see their game. But it's a lot of kids, a lot of parents, and the kids that when I first started, they're now bringing their kids to the rec department.
And, if you had as a person who participated in a lot of different recreation programs, if you had a question, you had a problem, he was always there to help you and answer. Also, he's not afraid to make a phone call and ask you for a donation too. I mean, he looks out for the kids because
yes.
all the programs at the Recreation and Parks Department, are supported by the town, but also supported by the community. And you have to raise some money. And you, along with Tom Perlazzo, Susan Petito, Kim, always did a great job of just reaching out to the community and being part of the community. And it was just a great time at the time. The 80s and 90s were really, really special for me. We were younger. I was much more involved. We played a lot of pickup basketball,
right.
a lot of organized basketball there.
Right.
And I know the softball was huge back then as well.
Oh, it was. And I think we felt like the recreation department was a centerpiece for the citizens in Ocean City. And the businesses back then were really good to us. They understood. Most of them participated in our programs. A lot of them coached in our programs, so we had a connection. So that was really good. The businesses were good for us, good for our sponsors, good for the town, good for the kids, and it was very. You would think that when I was leaving, that it was hard leaving the kids and everything, but it was also hard leaving all the businesses and restaurants in the town. So I also go back and visit.
Well, Hondo, cheers to a great life. It was a great career, but more importantly, a life well played, defying expectations. If you haven't gotten a copy of it, pick it up. It's definitely worth the read. It's a great read for the younger generation as well. If you think you can't make it, you can. And it, like he says, if you think you can, you can. We've got some workers back here going on, so we're going to have to wrap it up, Hondo. Always great seeing you.
Well, thank you.
For Al Hondo Handy, I'm Bobby Vermillion. We'll see you next time on the Endless Golf Podcast.
The Endless Golf Podcast has been brought to you by Toyota.